Coast to coast. The Stephen A. Smith Show starts right now.
What's up? Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airwaves of ESPN Radio and ESPN News, 250 plus markets across the United States of America. Check your AM, FM listing nearest you, plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM, Channel 80, plus ESPN Radio simulcast over the live national television airwaves of ESPN News. Number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, making it easy to bundle your home and car insurance. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. You know we got a lot of stuff to get into today, but we know where we're going to start. Antonio Brown, star wide receiver formerly of the Pittsburgh Steelers, star wide receiver formerly of the Oakland Raiders, star wide receiver presently for the New England Patriots, who he just signed with over the weekend, has been accused of rape. There are allegations of rape by his former trainer, a female by the name of Miss Brittany Taylor. She has accused him of rape, and as a result, he appears to be in a world of trouble. We are not about to sit up here and engage in the guilt or innocence. It is an allegation. We have absolutely no evidence whatsoever to cast any judgment whatsoever as it pertains to this particular issue. A civil suit is being filed. Brittany Taylor has made it very, very clear to the National Football League and others that she is available to be interviewed, that she is open to discussing the matter. She claims that on 3 separate occasions, twice in 2017, she was sexually assaulted by Antonio Brown. And in 2018, she said he flat out raped her. So this is what's going on right now. Antonio Brown has categorically denied it through his attorney. Says Mr. Brown denies each and every allegation in this lawsuit. Statement from Darren Heitner, a lawyer representing Brown. Quote, he will pursue all legal remedies to not only clear his name, but to also protect other professional athletes against false accusations. The accusations are clear. The statement characterized Taylor's lawsuit as motivated by money, according to Antonio Brown's attorney. It was not clear whether Taylor reported her accusations to the police. According to the suit, Brown sexually assaulted Taylor twice during training sessions in June of 2017. First, he exposed himself and kissed her without permission, the lawsuit says. Later that month, the lawsuit says, while they were streaming religious programming on a tablet at his South Florida home, Brown started masturbating behind Taylor and ejaculated on her back. I'm just reading from the article in the New York Times. I work for Walt Disney. I'm reading, just in case anybody and for Walt Disney's listening, I'm reading directly from the article of the New York Times. I'm not engaging in hyperbole. I'm not interpreting. I am quoting. These are the words that was used in the New York Times. The lawsuit contains images of profane messages that Taylor says Brown sent to her about the incident. Taylor ended her working relationship with Brown, the lawsuit says, but several months later, when he contacted her to apologize, she relented. She was, according to the lawsuit, quote, swayed by his assurance that he would cease any sexual advances. Then, the lawsuit says, on May 20th, 2018, Brown forced her onto a bed, pushed her face into the mattress, and, quote, forcibly, end quote, raped her. She tried to resist him, screaming and repeatedly shouting no and stop, the lawsuit says, but Brown refused and penetrated her. The statement from Brown's lawyer acknowledged at least one instance when the two engaged in quote-unquote consensual sex, according to Brown's lawyer, and also said that, quote, any sexual interaction with Mr. Brown was entirely consensual. The lawsuit says that Taylor told at least 3 people about the incidents: her mother, Brown's chef, and a member of her church who advised her to come forward. Quote, as a rape victim of Antonio Brown, deciding to speak out has been an incredibly difficult decision, Taylor, who is 28 years of age, said in a statement released by her lawyer. I have found strength in my faith, my family, and from the accounts of other survivors of sexual assault, end quote. In the statement, she said she would cooperate with the National Football League in an investigation. The league's commissioner, Roger Goodell, has the power to discipline players under a personal conduct policy that does not depend on the outcome of legal proceedings. In 2014, the NFL hired specialists in domestic violence cases to do their own investigations of allegations. Quote, from the New England Patriots, who just gave them $9 million guaranteed, an extra $1 million in signing, and $5 million in incentives he could potentially get if he were to play and succeed for them. The New England Patriots, owned by Robert Kraft, who's been adamant, has a no zero tolerance policy, a zero tolerance policy rather, when it comes to sexual assault, domestic violence. Patriot statement, we take these allegations very seriously. Under no circumstances does this organization condone sexual violence or assault. The league has informed us that they will be investigating. We will have no further comment while that investigation takes place. An NFL spokesman declined comment. And there you have it. Top of the 2 o'clock hour, Antonio Brown's former teammate, former member of the Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers, NFL analyst extraordinaire for the family, and somebody that Antonio Brown has expressed absolutely no love for whatsoever in terms of going at him for the things that he has had to say about Antonio Brown in the past based on his on-field and locker room antics, Ryan Clark. He will be on the show with us at the top of hour number 2, followed by Ryan Smith, legal analyst for ESPN, who will be on with yours truly at 30 minutes past hour number 2. I broke that down for you. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm not telling you it's going to happen, but I would tell you that I would be shocked if Antonio Brown is yanked from the New England Patriots and placed on the commissioner's exempt list and denied the opportunity to play for the Patriots. I would be shocked if that did not happen within the next 48 hours. Now, you're going to hear people from the Players Association and others focusing on process, due process. Going to hear all of that, no doubt. And I'm not telling you that that's the right thing for the National Football League to do, because Antonio Brown has not been indicted. It is not yet a criminal investigation from a legal perspective, meaning, like he's being threatened with jail time or anything like that. She's filed a civil suit. It says it's $75,000, but essentially, according to a friend of mine who happens to be an attorney, he pointed out how when it comes to Antonio Brown in this situation, he said the $75,000 that she purportedly seeks is the minimal amount she had to plead to get into federal court based on diversity jurisdiction. In other words, two parties from different states. Her actual claim will be in excess of $1 million, according to one of my legal sources. She was pleading $75K as a procedural matter to trigger the federal court's diversity jurisdiction, i.e. a plaintiff and defendant who live in different states. So it's not $75,000 she's after. It's more like over $1 million. But the point is, for me, for the purposes of this show, we're not lawyers. We're not defense attorneys. We're not prosecutors. We damn sure ain't judges. We don't have all the facts, and it would be irresponsible. Irresponsible. Regardless of your disgust with Antonio Brown's antics over the last several weeks, it would be incredibly irresponsible and, dare I say, unfair to castigate him as somebody who's guilty of the allegations that have been levied against him. And it would also be equally unfair to automatically assume that this woman, Brittany Taylor, is lying. We don't know. Period. No matter what way you slice it, we don't know. And unless you were there, unless you have evidence that she's lying or that he's lying, shut up about this particular incident as it pertains to its veracity or lack thereof. We don't know. Here's what's safe to say. The National Football League doesn't have to know. The National Football League, and I want to caution the National Football League on this as well, because at times in the past, when people have been placed in the commissioner's exempt list, you got to remember, it's to protect the league. So you take a person away from playing on the football field, but you don't take away their money. You're just not allowed to play. But in the past, when the NFL have made those decisions and they've conducted their investigations, I believe that following investigations that the NFL has engaged in egregious acts by literally castigating and painting a strong level of guilt towards the accused, meaning one of their players. This is not the court of law. This is not a civil. I'm talking about as it pertains to the NFL. It's not civil when it comes to you, the NFL. You investigate the matter to find out what level of justification warrants you either putting somebody on the commissioner's exempt list or not. That's all the information we need to know. Whether it's Ezekiel Elliott, who was suspended for 6 games. Whether it's Kareem Hunt, who's suspended for the first 8 games of the season. Whether it's Reuben Foster, who's been on the commissioner's exempt list. Greg Hardy, who was, by the way, convicted in a North Carolina court of law, but it was a non-jury trial, and the judge convicted him before he appealed it, and the case ultimately was dropped. But no matter who it is, the NFL has no business telling us who they believe is guilty or not. You are not the court of law. Stop. All that we need from the NFL is whether or not you believe a situation or incident warrants somebody being placed on the commissioner's exempt list to protect the league, the shield. And why does it need protection? Because anything that sullies the shield, that compromises the brand that is the NFL in any way, that impugns its integrity as an entity, as a commodity, you have a right to sit up there and say, okay, you can't go on the field wearing a uniform representing us. We ain't gonna take away your money, but you can't do that. That's reasonable. That's all we need to know from the NFL. That's all we need to know. Because to tell us more elevates the level of dependency we may have on you to give us more in-depth truths about athletes and others working under your shield in the future, and you don't want that responsibility or culpability on your hands if you're the National Football League. So don't give us all of that. Court of law, they can do that. But not you. If you're the National Football League, all you have to do is tell us whether something warrants somebody's participation or arrival on the commissioner's exempt list or not. And in this case with Antonio Brown, I think it's undoubtedly so. Ladies and gentlemen, the commissioner's exempt list exists for the sole express purpose of protecting the league. That's why it exists, John. That's why it exists, y'all. And if that is the reason it exists, we cannot deny that these allegations against Antonio Brown, possibly false, if you take into account Reuben Foster's situation, where the woman actually admitted she lied because she was upset that he broke it off with her. And by the way, I heard no apologies directed in Reuben Foster's direction when that happened, by the way. When in the courts, the woman admitted she lied. And I saw no apologies aimed in Reuben Foster's direction. None. And he was excoriated by some because his guilt was presumed. So we all have to be careful here. Now, that don't mean Antonio Brown's innocent. It doesn't mean that Brittany Taylor's lying. But what it does mean is that we don't know. So a civil suit or a criminal case, that's different. In the case of the commissioner and the commissioner's exempt list, none of that's required. The commissioner for the National Football League has the power to say your alleged actions or the fact that you're even caught up in this situation impugns the integrity of this league in such a way that it is difficult for us to let you go out on that football field on a Sunday afternoon representing our shield. We don't want it. So you can keep your money, but you ain't getting on that field until this case is resolved. The commissioner can do that. And I believe he will. Patriots will fight it now. They just got Antonio Brown there. They committed $9 million to him. They want to get something in return. I mean, damn, could you imagine? And you got to remember, Antonio Brown, I don't know if you watch Bill Belichick at the press conference and what have you. I think Antonio Brown is completely blindsided by this. Completely blindsided by this. He didn't see this coming. I'm talking about the Patriots didn't see this coming. Antonio Brown didn't tell him. I didn't mean Antonio Brown was completely blindsided. I meant the Patriots were completely blindsided by this. It appears they didn't see this coming. He didn't tell them. So one would argue that's grounds to cut him. But if you're the Patriots and you've already committed the dollars to him, you might not want to do that. And if you don't want to do that, then it's up to the league. That's the situation that we're looking at. This is some bad stuff, y'all. And if you're USA Today, Nancy Amore wrote a tremendous column in today's paper talking about Antonio Brown, pulling no punches. And she basically accused him of hijacking the National Football League. Because over the past few weeks, he's been the center of attention. Over the past few weeks, that's been what you've been talking about when it comes to the NFL. I mean, what is there to say? Headline, Antonio Brown becoming NFL's worst nightmare. USA Today. Article in today's USA Today by Nancy Amore. Opening line, Antonio Brown is going to spoil all those grand plans the NFL had for its 100th anniversary. They changed the lead from this morning. This morning was like, He hasn't just been the story of the league, he's hijacked it. This is what you're living with. This is what the situation is. It's going to be real interesting to see how things unfold here on out. I will tell you this, Antonio Brown's in a world of trouble. Because even, and we don't know this, but even if he's innocent, his name is associated with this, and it piggybacks off the reprehensible, clownish, selfish acts he had engaged in leading up to his arrival in New England. This is a guy that had endorsement deals. Watch me. Watch me. Watch me. That's what he was doing. Ain't nobody watching now. Not for that reason. It's not fun and games anymore. You don't want to see him on Dancing with the Stars now. You don't want to see him in commercials now. You don't want to see any of that. At this point in time, one of the top 2 wide receivers in the world will be lucky to be on a football field this Sunday. It's just the truth. Ain't no way around it. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. That was Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less. Only at Walmart. We'll get to your calls and more in a minute. Don't touch that dial. Lots of phone calls to get to. Lots of things to talk about. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, when it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need to get to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screening questions based on your job requirements, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. Discover why more than 3 million businesses use Indeed for hiring. Post a job today. And all of that was supposed to be squashed. Now to me, Kobe saying what he said yesterday, it's just Kobe being candid and matter of fact about it. But the clap back from Shaq says he was a bit offended. And if you Kobe, you had to know Shaq would be offended. Which means saying it, you just didn't care. Probably not a big deal. Knowing Shaq, he'll brush it off, laugh it off, talk about it's marketing, just another brilliant move on his part. And Kobe was in on it. Knowing Shaq, he'll come up with some cockamamie story like that. But it ain't that simple. Now, let me be the first to say, here's what I love about Kobe. No matter what the fallout is, Kobe ain't gonna give a damn. He said what he said, he meant what he meant, period. Period. Kobe ain't trying to assuage anybody's concern. He ain't trying to gloss over it and smooth the edges. He ain't trying to do none of that. That ain't Kobe. My only point is, I thought we were past all of this. I will say this, too. I don't think Kobe and Shaq together would have had 12 rings. They might have had 7, but not 12. I don't believe that. I just don't believe that. I don't see that at all. I think they might have had 2 more titles together. 5 or 6, maybe, actually. They might have had 2 more titles together. Remember, Shaq went to Miami. Let's not forget the Dallas Mavericks, who lost to the Miami Heat at the time when Dwayne Wade came onto the scene and just let everybody know, I'm that dude. I'm that dude. I'm that future Hall of Famer. There's MJ, there's Kobe, and there's me.
Now, it's not as if we're talking about a prison situation. It's simply a claim that Antonio Brown sexually assaulted this woman and that she is asking for money damages.
Brown's lawyer said in a statement tonight that he will pursue all legal remedies.
This is unfolding in front of the NFL's eyes, just as it is unfolding in front of the eyes of everybody else.
Yeah, but obviously we still have a lot to learn, and the league has a lot to learn.
When is it going to end with the smoke around Antonio Brown? It's always something.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
broadcast brought to you by the Capital One Quicksilver Card. Earning unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere. Hey! What's in your wallet? 888-SAY-ESPN is the number to call. It's 888-729-3776. You listen live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Let's get to the phones. Let's go to Trina. You're live with Stephen A. Hello, Trina. How are you?
Hey, Stephen A. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for calling.
Look, as a woman, let me just say this. If this happened to me, we don't know if it did or not, I would press criminal charges. There's no way in hell I'm going to worry about money first before a criminal charge. I'm going to have proof, and I'm going to want him to go to jail. Suing him is going to be maybe something I would do after the fact. So this has me confused.
No. Give it to me straight, Trina. You live with Stephen A. It has you what? You had an original thought that you didn't say. Tell me what it has you feeling. Tell me.
I don't believe it's true. I think she's out for money. If you notice, AB's been talking, but after Saturday when he got selected for the New England, you didn't hear a peep out of him. Mm-hmm. I think this is what he wanted the entire time.
Probably.
I think he was blindsided as well. And all I can say is, obviously, assault is a criminal offense. It's egregious. And if anyone, AB or anyone does it, they should be punished.
You really think, Trina, he was blindsided in terms of not knowing this was coming down the pike? You really think that?
Well, yes, because it's 2017, 2018. Why did she wait till we're in 2019? We're 3/4 of 2019. What's she waiting on?
No. I'm not questioning that part. I'm just saying, you really think he didn't know? He had no idea she was going to do this?
Well, he probably thought she may have, but he probably thought she would have done it by now. So I'm thinking. I don't know what he was thinking, so let me take that out of the formula. But he obviously was aware of this, but I don't understand why she waited. And what's really got me all messed up is this civil suit. If he did this to me and most women, any woman, I can speak for her, I want him to go to jail. Would I get the civil suit? Yeah, maybe on the back end, but I want him in
not
jail,
on the front end. Basically, your position is that if you would find her more believable if the first order of business was criminal charges as opposed to money in a civil suit.
Yes, and because the civil suit, you don't have to really prove he did it or not. They're going to try to tie his current and past behavior, which you've already said. No.
There's no evidence whatsoever of past behavior. I mean, anything he's done in his past, no matter how clownish or ridiculous it may be, it had certainly no relation to this allegation.
Right, I agree. So what I think she's probably going to try to do is tie the two in together, though, to make it like he's just crazy and he should pay her money. One other last comment I got.
Real quick, go ahead.
Which made me think, whatever happened with Robert Kraft and his mess? That kind of disappeared, and it kind of had me wondering, well, what happened with his issue, and how much will New England actually really fall in on behalf of AB when Robert Kraft had his own issue that kind of vanished?
Well, he had his own issues, but he was basically an older man that was engaging in activity we don't really need to get into on the Walt Disney Network. But the bottom line is that what you had was a prosecutor who wanted to show footage of it for crying out loud. And his whole position was it wasn't criminal. You might find it distasteful for a 76-year-old man to be engaging in that kind of behavior with somebody in their 30s, but nevertheless, that's what he wanted to do, and there was absolutely nothing criminal, and there was no evidence to the contrary.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Gotta go.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Call. You're live with Stephen A. Real quick call. Go ahead, man.
Hey, Stephen A. Just a quick thing. It's bad for the league what's going on with Brown. We want our young kids to play football. He has people looking up to him, idolizing him, and what example are we setting for our future?
Well, hold on, wait a minute. Playing the devil's advocate. Some would ask, well, where were you when Jerry Jones was accused of stuff? Where was you when Robert Kraft was accused of stuff? Where were you when other folks were accused of stuff? Why is it that Antonio Brown gets accused of it, and now we bringing up role model and how it's bad for the league?
Yeah, but same thing.
What do you say to that?
Could have been said about Big Ben. Look at what happened with Big Ben 9 years ago.
Yeah.
But the only thing is, it was swept under the rug because it's Big Ben, but because it's Brown, let's blow it up out of proportion.
Stop. 9 years ago, social media wasn't what it is in this day and age. I would tell you that's the difference. The level of of, being high profile, the level of attention that you get is exponentially larger in this day and age than it was in years past. I would tell you that has a lot to do with it.
No, you're right. I'm just saying, we can't hold Brown to a certain example, social media or not. What Big Ben did the same thing and was accused twice. Mm-hmm. That's the whole point. You can't hold one man higher than the other. That's my whole point.
Well, nobody's holding one higher than the other. It's just that Ben was years ago and this is now. So it's fresh. And because it's fresh, that's why it's being discussed. If this happened with Big Ben Roethlisberger right now, it would be being discussed in the same fashion.
You're absolutely right, Stephen A. Keep up the great work. You're one of the best. Have a great day.
Appreciate it. My brother, Champ, you live with Stephen A. Go ahead, big boy.
How you doing?
I'm all right. Go ahead, man.
I'm first to say this. If Commissioner Goodell suspends him or put him on the exempt list, I think it's Bush League because, again, just like the caller said a couple calls ago, it's 2017 to 2018, and there's a lawsuit. There's not any criminal charges or press charges on him in terms of sexual assault. And we setting a standard for these young ladies out here. And I know it's insensitive for a man to call out women for screaming rape, saying, "Oh, wait a minute, you're not being sensitive to us." But let me just throw this out here. A lot of these athletes, okay, they mess with these IG models. They make money. They give these girls these money. They fly them in. They do all kind of stuff with them. And then when they get upset, they pull these stunts. And I'm not saying everyone is not true in terms of, yes, it's true that we know Sharper was a bad person. Darren Sharper was out in prison for 20-something. Absolutely. We get that. But when you engage in not once, but not twice, but 3 times, but all of a sudden you're saying that he sexually assaulted you? Come on. Let's be real. And then you got
wait a minute, Sam. Champ. You got to be careful, man. Here's the reality. Think about what she said. He took my head. He pressed it against the mattress face down, and he forcibly raped me. There ain't no justification for that under any circumstances at any time, Champ.
Guess what? I totally agree. Where are the charges? Why are you running? Why are you going after the money? And the issue, and when I say you have these people that get on these panels and are afraid to have the conversations as men because they put the women in there, and then you have to really be careful on what you say because we live in the 2019 era where, hey, if you say this and you're too harsh, you got folks that get suspended just off some of the things they say because they say, you know what, let's wait a second. Let's just wait a second here. And too many times we are putting these athletes out here and saying, wait, putting bad press on them. Then where's the apology? Remember years ago when Michael Irvin said,
keep the same intensity. Don't lose the intensity. Keep the same intensity. Please don't lose the intensity. Keep the same intensity. That's what he said coming out of the courthouse.
I was 13 years old when that happened. That's 26 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. My point is saying this, just going back to the caller again, I want to throw this out. He brought up Ben Roethlisberger. And I want to say this. Talk about the media and how they trick everybody and how they want to choose to push a story. A guy by the name of Robert Blake, right? His wife and him was in Beverly Hills, and she caught a bullet in her head, and she died. There were criminal charges, and there was a civil case. A guy by the name of O.J. Simpson had criminal charges against his ex-wife and another gentleman, and there was criminal charges in the civil case. They both were found not guilty. They both lost the civil case for $33.5 million, and neither one has paid $1. But it's only one person they talk about night in and night out over the media over the last 20 years, and that's O.J. Simpson. And my point of saying that is this. Whenever it's a black person, they use it as the bulletin board material and push the agenda to say this is not right and saying this is bad for the league. What's bad for the league is Jerry Jones, Robert Kraft. What about the players that's been on pills and killing people for drunk driving? What about how you promote beer and so forth like that? Don't use Antonio Brown as the scapegoat to try to push a new agenda. If he's guilty, he shouldn't play in the NFL. I'm all for that. But go through the due process.
Yeah, but the commissioner's list is not about due process. The commissioner's list is about anything that damages or impugns the integrity of the league and draws negative attention away from the positive attention that playing actual football games provides, we're going to take a look at, we're going to view that as conduct detrimental to the team, and we're going to act accordingly. That's their MO. It's not to establish or decide guilt, innocence, or whatever. It's to establish whether or not your current situation is damaging to the league or not. That's what the commissioner's exempt list is about.
I agree with you. Kudos to Adam Silver on how he handled the Los Angeles Clippers owner years ago.
Yep.
If that was true and you setting the standard for the Shield, the minute the incident that happened with Robert Kraft, he shouldn't have been allowed to go in the facility of the New England Patriots. It should have been a standard set. And then they should have did a full investigation and allowed him back. See, you got to start from the top. They keep going into the middle. And all I'm saying is, let's have the real conversation and stop having these fake conversations on national television. That's all I'm saying.
That's fair.
I'm not condoning raping and assaulting young ladies. Make that clear.
Right.
But let's tell the truth. Let's stop being afraid, and let's have a real conversation. So now everybody can look at it and say, you know what? I get it.
I can appreciate that. I got to bounce, champ. I appreciate the call, man. Thank you so much. Great conversation with you. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Champ makes great points. You can try to deny it all you want to. He makes great points. Talk about having a real conversation. Because we have reached a point in our society where we can, and this is not about Antonio Brown or Brittany Taylor or the truth or lack thereof about either side. Forget all of that for a second. Think about the bigger point that Champ was making. We are living in an age right now, we can't have conversations. Reuben Foster got accused. The girl walked into the courtroom and announced that she lied because she was upset that he had let her go. He was vilified and crucified before she admitted her guilt. Then came back, admitted it. Nobody wanted to acknowledge it. And then it turned around and accused him again. And automatically people were thinking he was guilty again. And he had to be put on the commissioner's exempt list. Champ's right. We have reached a point in our society right now, we can't even have a conversation. Because God forbid you say anything. Anything that people disagree with or deem inappropriate. He's right about that. He's right about that. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Back with your calls in more in a minute. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, do you have freaking heartburn? Like the kind where you have antacids stashed everywhere in case it pops up? You know what I mean. You keep some in your bag or your desk or your car or your nightstand. You have those chalky tablets ready for whenever and wherever heartburn strikes. Well, listen up. There's an easier way to deal with your heartburn. That's Prilosec OTC. Just one pill a day will last a full 24 hours with zero heartburn. So kick your antacid habit, please. It's possible with Prilosec OTC. Use as directed for 14 days to treat frequent heartburn, not for immediate relief.
Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
From the biggest concerts and games to the hottest theater shows and more, Vivid Seats has it all. Download the app and join the Vivid Seats Rewards loyalty program. To the phones we go. Let's go. Kelvin, you're live with Stephen A. Real quick, Kelvin. Go ahead, buddy.
What's going on, Stephen A?
I'm all right. Go ahead. You only got a minute. Go ahead, man.
All right. Well, I was calling about the Antonio Brown situation, and I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist, and I feel like the way this whole thing is coming about, I feel like the timing is kind of telling. Because if this happened like 2 years ago, like she said, and Antonio Brown been in the spotlight all summer, and all of a sudden, as soon as he signs to where he kind of wants to go, or kind of where he hints to go, and the news, only news that was reported was him practicing today, and then right after that, he calmed down, then wham.
Well, here's the only problem with your thinking. The money he signed for with the New England Patriots was actually less than what he signed with Oakland for.
Yeah, but he get half of that within a year. How many?
Yeah, but he was due to get $14 million this year.
True.
I'm just saying. All I'm saying to you is that your argument, your theory, is fine if you're just saying that. Period. But it falls apart when you're trying to point to the timing because he had money from the Oakland Raiders months before he ever got it from New England. That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay, I understand that also, and as well with the timing. Think about if it happened 2 years ago. That's the thing. It happened 2 years ago, and she's going straight for a civil suit. Like I know people who like my wife. She's personally been raped. She told me about this, and
Oh man, you know what?
exactly.
Hold on, because I don't want you to get into all of that because we got a hard break now. I gotta go. I'm saying we got a hard break, so try to call back if you want to explain that midway through hour number 2. Ryan Clark up next.
Host, the Stephen A. Smith Show starts right now.
The 50-plus markets across the United States of America. Check your AM, FM listing, plus Sirius XM Channel 80, plus ESPN Radio on ESPN News. By the way, we all love a night out, whether it's seeing our favorite band or being in the crowd to cheer on our favorite team. With the Vivid Seats Royalties Loyalty Program, you earn credit towards your next live event. Download the app and join the Vivid Seats Rewards Loyalty Program today and start getting credit for your fandom. Also, prep your engine for winter with Pennzoil Synthetic Motor Oil, the first motor oil made from natural gas, not crude oil. The proof is in the Pennzoil. Honored and privileged to have my next guest on the line, Super Bowl champion, former player rep. I don't know why the hell he went to the Redskins the year that he did, but that's a different subject for another day. Does an absolutely phenomenal job for us covering the NFL, Sports Center, First Take, NFL Live, the list goes on and on. The man himself, the one and only Ryan Clark, is sitting right next to me. What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm excited to get the year started.
That's right. So am I. And we were very, very excited until
Yeah.
today. Antonio Brown is the order of the day. That's the news of the day. First of all, you just heard about these rape allegations. Address that as it pertains to a former teammate of yours, Antonio Brown. We know y'all history going back and forth with one another, but your thoughts about the allegations against them and what you think is going to happen.
Yeah, see, and that's the thing. No matter what the back and forth is, me and you talk about this all the time. These are the situations we hate. You never want to see people go down this path and get into this type of trouble. And it's such a situation right now. We don't have all the facts. And it's hard to separate some of the things we've seen recently from Antonio Brown and his behavior and this, but I think they're two totally different things. And so now you look at the league and you're looking at this. We talked a little bit about the commissioner's exempt list. This is something I think that will come into that consideration. He's already such a high-profile star, a guy that has been in the news for doing the wrong thing, and now you bring in Miss Taylor, Brittany Taylor's accusations against him, and then you get the email that comes out, and now we see some of the information and some of the way he addressed her once these concerns were brought to his attention. And if I'm the NFL, if I'm the league, I don't want to be a part of this. I want to be separated from it. And we spoke a little bit about the NFLPA and what they have to do as well. They have to not defend Antonio Brown's guilt or innocence, but defend his process, defend his due process, defend his opportunity to play this game. And so going forward, I don't think the New England Patriots suspend him. I think the New England Patriots move along with Antonio Brown as a member of this team, and he plays this weekend. And so if you're looking for something to be done, it's going to have to be done on the NFL's end. They started to investigate this case already. Brittany Taylor has said that she will cooperate and speak with the NFL, but that's not until next week. So until then, I think things remain as they are. He's already at practice right now with the New England Patriots. He's in the building. He's learning, and I believe they plan to move forward with him as well.
Ryan Clark, I've been on the record saying I'd be shocked if he's not placed on the commissioner's exempt list by Friday. And to me, it has everything to do with the precedent that they have set in the past. Now, some could argue Adrian Peterson, corporal punishment against his own child, at least that's the way people termed it. Okay, he was indicted. Okay, you got to deal with that. Greg Hardy was indicted, found guilty by a judge, a non-jury trial, but a trial judge in North Carolina before appealing that case ultimately was dropped. Reuben Foster had accusations made against him, investigation before those charges were dropped. But you had Kareem Hunt, obviously. You have all of these people that were placed on the commissioner's exempt list, even though one could have argued the team themselves would have still let those guys play. Although Antonio Brown is not being arrested, there is an ongoing investigation on the part of the NFL. There is an ongoing investigation by authorities, from my understanding. This clearly is a civil case being exacted against him. To me, usually that's enough for the league office and the commissioner himself to say, come on over here on this exempt list. To that you say what?
Yeah, it's a situation where he hasn't been indicted and no charges have been brought against him other than this civil case. And a lot of times as a PA, we don't want to allow guys to be able to be presumed guilty before his due process has taken place. And very often that has to do with authorities. And in this situation, it won't. I do feel what you're saying, that because of the precedent set, the things we've seen with the Greg Hardys, the Ezekiel Elliott's, this seems like something they will review. And I think they will look at it. But this isn't a repeat offender type situation for Antonio Brown. This isn't a situation to where the law is involved, at least from the sense of him being indicted or charged with anything. And so I think they have to tread very lightly on how they react and enact punishment at this point in time. If we get more information, and I think it begins to become more of a black eye to the NFL, I believe that's when they make that move. But just now, just getting the accusation, not having an opportunity to talk to Ms. Taylor, I think that makes it hard for the commissioner to make that move.
I completely agree with you, Ryan, but the thing that I think everybody's missing is that even without these allegations, even separate and apart from this incident, you had people that were saying the NFL would have been justified in suspending Antonio Brown because of his conduct against the Oakland Raiders when he was there. To that you say what? Because you
I don't agree with that.
Right.
I understand what people were saying because it was every day and it was always something, a recorded phone call. He claimed to not use the word that was said to be used toward Mike Mayock. And speaking with other people, the NFL said Mike Mayock actually said the same thing, that he was not called that. And so, we're getting some of this information, and we look at the way that he basically forced himself out of Oakland. Those were things that Oakland fined him for. Those were things that now that he's been pushed out of Oakland or released from Oakland, that they handled in the way that they were supposed to. I don't necessarily think that goes along the same lines as some of those other names and some of the incidents that got those people placed onto that list. Now, if they say they want to fine him in some way or try to some way punish him for that, I can see that happening. But putting him on the commissioner exempts list for that.
Oh, no, I wasn't saying that.
You just said
suspended him for that.
Yeah, I don't think he deserves to be suspended for that. That was something he did to one team. It was victimless acts as far as who was harmed by it, and they released him. Now he has suffered the consequences of those actions.
Ryan Clark right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. So with that being said, how are you supposed to feel at this particular moment if you are a Pittsburgh Steeler? Are you relieved that you don't have him? Or judging by the way they looked Sunday night against the New England Patriots, are you like, damn, I miss him? What emotion is the overwhelming thing with your former team?
I believe, and I've talked to a few people, I believe it's relief. And it's not even relief because of what's going on right now. Some of the things in Oakland, I believe they were relieved by. But talking to people in that locker room, there's a sense that even now you can come to work and not have to worry about those things. That Ben Roethlisberger can come to work and just be a quarterback and not have to worry about dealing with Antonio Brown, and even more so dealing with the effect that he had on the rest of the locker room as it pertained to Ben Roethlisberger. Because I can be honest with you now, and speaking on it, there were a lot of people who did side with Antonio Brown. A lot of people who felt
similar to T.O. Donovan McNabb.
Very similar.
Split locker room.
It was a split locker room, and for Ben being on the other side of it and feeling like he had been wronged or like he was been put in a bad position or seen in a tough light. It's hard to come to work and play your position well in that case. Now let's get to the football field. When Juju Smith-Schuster gets his first opportunity to face number one schematic defense, to have to face number one wide receiver matchups, which is Stephon Gilmore of the New England Patriots, and you only get 2 catches in the first half, that's not good enough.
Right.
So in that sense, you say, you know what, if we have number 84 out there, Stephon Gilmore doesn't get to match up on him one-on-one, and we just go away from that and not attack him. And so it hurts you in that instance, but having a locker room that is together, a locker room that has the chemistry that it needs now, I think they take that right now over the on-field production, especially seeing what's happened since he's left there.
When you look at the AFC North, did we make a mistake focusing so much attention on the Steelers without Antonio Brown, the Cleveland Browns with Odell Beckham Jr., but we ignored the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson?
I think the bigger mistake we made was that it wasn't that we ignored them. It was that we looked at Lamar Jackson and the ineptitude of this passing attack last year, especially in the wild card round against the Los Angeles Chargers, and thought to ourselves, well, he just can't do it.
Well, 13 minutes left in the game. You only got 3 completions for 25 yards. That might do it.
Right, but you feel me, Stephen A? It wasn't even like we looked at it and said, we're ignoring them. We looked at it. We actually looked at it. We dissected it and analyzed it and said, with a passing game like that, this team can't compete. And we, ignored the fact that, you know what, players get better. We ignored the fact that at a young age, Lamar Jackson had a deficiency, and now he has an opportunity to work on it. Let's not be confused. He's not going to have a perfect passer rating every week. But when you look at that game, some of the tight window throws he made, the accuracy downfield, and if you watch throughout the game, there were some plays and some throws he made from different planes in the pocket that we hadn't seen him make last year as the starting quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm not ready to say that this is the team we'll see every week. But if he can show this type of improvement in the passing game, they are going to be very difficult to beat because we know, just as every year with the John Harbaugh teams, they're going to be extremely stout defensively.
Let's stick with the Miami Dolphins because we talk about the Baltimore Ravens against the Miami Dolphins. They looked absolutely pathetic, inept, embarrassing. Damn near a Pop Warner team looked like they could have done better, losing 59-10. Ryan Fitzpatrick, obviously not impressive.
Josh Rosen comes in.
You move Kenny Stills, Tunsil as well. He's gone. And you've got players reportedly calling their agents wanting out because they believe damn near the coaching staff was losing on purpose. What did you make? I mean, you got corners that wasn't getting any help from safeties on long passes, and there was no coverage back there. What did you make of the Miami Dolphins reacting the way that they did in the aftermath of that loss?
Well, the first thing is this. After losing 59-10, what makes you think anybody else wants any of y'all?
That's right.
With the way that those guys played as a team, with the way that they coached. I think it's sad when you hear reports that when Stephen Ross was looking for candidates for the head coaching job, he told them, don't worry about it. Winning's not that important this year. We don't really care if you win or lose. That's not necessarily a job I want to take. And if you're Brian Flores, an African-American coach, you don't get enough opportunities to take a job.
And Chris Gray, an African-American general manager.
Yeah. You don't get an opportunity to take jobs where it's okay to lose because we don't get the next job that way. And so it also makes me look back to some of the things that were going on in Miami preseason, whether it was the Stephen Ross situation with holding the benefit and Kenny Stills there, the playing of Jay-Z at practice. It seems almost as if they were worried about so many things outside of football that football didn't get focused on. And it's one thing to lose a game, Stephen. You know, people lose football games. Our Steelers didn't look good. They lost by 30, but it still wasn't what we saw in Miami. And if this continues for this team, the NFL is going to have to do something about when it looks like teams are tanking. When it seems you're giving away all of your assets and you're not getting anything back.
Well, they got a couple of first-round picks, a couple of second-round picks. We can't ignore the fact that they did get compensation.
Right,
it's just that this season, it's not going to materialize.
Also, listen, and the Raiders looked bad last year, right? We looked at the Raiders giving away Khalil Mack. Obviously, they were, like you said, Cooper. They got draft picks. They get Amari Cooper, and it was bad. It didn't look like that. Right? You felt in watching it that there was going to be a way that they can improve. We actually pointed toward the draft and said, okay, if they hit right on these first 3 round picks, they have a chance, which they did. You lose Jonathan Abram now to an injury, but those guys played well, and now you see what this team is. After watching Miami on Sunday, I don't feel that way. After watching Miami, I don't feel like this thing improves to resemble anything, kind of mentioning to your point, anything of what an NFL franchise is supposed to look like. And I just don't think that's good for the Miami area, the Miami Dolphins organization, or the league as a whole.
I will say this. One team you got to feel good about is the Houston Texans, and they lost. But you got to feel good about them based on what you saw from Deshaun Watson. He's been absolutely sensational. And then not only that, he's playing in the division where in Tennessee, you can't make up your mind whether it's Mariota or Tannehill. You got Nick Foles that went down in Jacksonville. Andrew Luck retired in Indy.
Yeah.
Houston Texans, based on what we saw, even without Jadeveon Clowney, even with J.J. Watt registering a 0, no sacks, no tackles, no assists, nothing. It still took the last-minute heroics of Drew Brees along with Will Lutz to pull us out.
It took a 58-yard field goal to beat this team on the road in New Orleans, which is an extremely difficult place to play. And Deshaun Watson has been really good already. He was great last year. They go on a 9-game winning streak after losing the first 3. He showed leadership. He showed toughness. But to watch him play on Monday night, that was special. The 2 big throws, DeAndre Hopkins down the sideline, Kenny Stills down the seam to a 2-play drive of 75 yards to put your team on top. That's the stuff Dabo Swinney was talking about when he was promoting. Actually, he said he was Michael Jordan
of football.
And think about this, Stephen, and you know basketball better than anybody. That comparison, whenever you compare anybody to Michael Jordan, it's like, okay, hold on.
That's right.
It's Michael Jordan. But the one thing about that is we knew Mike wanted the ball in crunch time.
And we know that from Deshaun Watson.
And
not only that, got for 9 losses on his career as a starting quarterback. All of them have been by an average of 4 points in a regular season.
And
all of them.
And without protection. Like, you watch this game, Deshaun Watson was getting hit. He was having to evade the rush on many of the throws that he completed. And starting the game, DeAndre Hopkins had 3 drops, which never happens. And so when you see a guy like this that can play this way, Carlos Hyde began to run the ball well toward the end of the game or as the game got going. I think this team is going to be really difficult to beat for other AFC South teams.
Could they be the number 1 threat to the New England Patriots in the AFC, or is that still Kansas City?
It's Kansas City, but I'm still worried about Kansas City's defense. You watch a guy like Gardner Minshew come into a game, complete the amount of passes that he was able to complete. Obviously, they didn't have a book on him. I want to see them play better. But when you have a Patrick Mahomes, when a guy like Tyreek Hill can go down, but you can have a Sammy Watkins step up and almost have 200 yards receiving, 13 catches. You have Travis Kelce. I just feel like there's so much offensively there. It's much too early to put the Houston Texans in that category when you don't know what that offensive line can do to protect Deshaun Watson.
In the in the NFC, rather, the Dallas Cowboys. They are who they are. They're looking impressive right now. I can't deny it.
Are you scared to go back?
No. Scared of them?
Well, I saw you talking to people bad as soon as you touched down.
I don't give a damn. I ain't scared of them. I ain't scared, even though they need to pay Dak his money. They need to pay Dak Prescott this money. You don't have any problem with how long they've kept him waiting? I do.
I do. I thought Dak should have been the guy to get his deal first.
Yeah.
And I understand how people looked at it as he wasn't the best player of the 3 big guys on offense, but I thought he was the most important to this team's success. And so now you have to pay him. Now you're going to have to really go to him and make him the highest paid player in the NFL, whether you feel like he deserves it or not, because it's his turn. And if he continues to play the way that he played on Sunday, I think he gets an opportunity.
We just played against one man. The Giants don't have a team. It was just Saquon Barkley and a bunch of misfits. That's all it was. I mean, let's call it what it is. Let's call it what it is, John Ryan. Let's call it what it is.
Misfits,
well,
though.
I ain't gonna call them misfits. I don't mean it like they're incompetent. They're just not very good.
No.
They're not very good.
They're not very good at all. And so I weighed that in, and then I watched the way he played the game. I watched the way he completed passes and the spots that he was able to fit footballs in. These aren't things I saw from Dak early on in his career. So it shows me that he's making that progression as we've seen a Russell Wilson make. And I'm not comparing him to Tom Brady, guys, but as we had to see Tom Brady make as he continue to grow as a quarterback in this league. And if Dak can continue to do that, this team is going to be very difficult to beat this year because early on you saw Saquon go for the 59-yarder early, but this defense shut it down.
Last question. I don't even have the Cowboys as the best team in the NFC East. I got the Eagles. Right now.
And I agree with you.
You agree with me?
No, it's not a question. Coming into the season, I thought the Eagles were the team to beat in the NFC. And after a slow start, Carson Wentz got rolling. They looked every bit
the
part offensively.
So you think they're the team to beat in the NFC, not the NFC East? You think they're the team to beat even over New Orleans?
Yes. I think they're the team. I think they are the most explosive team offensively on this side of the conferences. And the other part of it is, though, can they stop people outside? We saw the rookie McLaurin get loose on them. Can those corners step up and play, which they said had improved, but we didn't get to see that on Sunday.
My man.
Appreciate
you,
you, brother.
always,
Look forward
man.
to it next week.
Same here. Oh, by the way, LSU's not looking bad. They might have a chance this year. They might have a chance. They might have a chance. Now you're gonna lose to the Tide now.
No, sir.
You coming to Tuscaloosa? You ain't winning in Tuscaloosa.
Stephen
you do
A.
know that. Stop
Stephen
it.
A.
Stop it.
Stephen A. Let's just watch it a little bit more.
Okay.
Let's watch it a little bit more.
I'll have
If this
to roll
defense,
Tide, baby.
if
Roll
this
Tide.
defense comes around a little bit now, because y'all are explosive on offense.
Mm-hmm.
But we can score this year. If we can get that pressure on
See,
Tua,
if,
out of there.
See, here we go with the ifs.
We gotta say, I gotta say if. I have to say if because I have to give the respect to the Alabama Crimson Tide that has earned for me.
You keep giving that. Y'all bow down to the Tide.
Bow.
Roll Tide.
But we ain't
Roll
bowing
Tide.
nowhere.
That's what. Please, y'all gonna go in second place. That's what you're gonna do. You ain't gonna do
Okay,
it.
bet that.
Third. I don't even know if y'all better than Georgia.
We're better than Georgia.
I don't know about that. You heard me.
First, we got to beat Alabama.
All right. How about that? Good luck with that, Ryan Clark. Appreciate you, bro. As always. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. That was the one and only Ryan Clark doing an outstanding job for us covering the NFL right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. We'll get back to your calls and more in just a minute here. By the way, did you know overall job satisfaction is at its highest level in 15 years? Wow. 51%. And all of that was supposed to be squashed. Now, to me, Kobe saying what he said yesterday, it's just Kobe being candid and matter of fact about it. But the clap back from Shaq says he was a bit offended. And if you Kobe, you had to know Shaq would be offended. Which means saying it, you just didn't care. Probably not a big deal. Knowing Shaq, he'll brush it off, laugh it off, talk about it's marketing, just another brilliant move on his part. And Kobe was in on it. Knowing Shaq, he'll come up with some cockamamie story like that. But it ain't that simple. Now, let me be the first to say, here's what I love about Kobe. No matter what the fallout is, Kobe ain't gonna give a damn. He said what he said, he meant what he meant, period. Period. Kobe ain't trying to assuage anybody's concern. He ain't trying to gloss over it and smooth the edges. He ain't trying to do none of that. That ain't Kobe. My only point is, I thought we were past all of this. I will say this, too. I don't think Kobe and Shaq together would have had 12 rings. They might have had 7, but not 12. I don't believe that. I just don't believe that. I don't see that at all. I think they might have had 2 more titles together. 5 or 6, maybe, actually. They might have had 2 more titles together. Remember, Shaq went to Miami. Let's not forget the Dallas Mavericks, who lost to the Miami Heat at the time when Dwayne Wade came onto the scene and just let everybody know, I'm that dude. I'm that dude. I'm that future Hall of Famer. There's MJ, there's Kobe, and there's me.
In front of the eyes of everybody else.
Yeah, but obviously we still have a lot to learn. In the league, has a lot to learn.
When is it going to end with the smoke around Antonio Brown? It's always something.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
29 minutes past hour number 2. Back here in the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. A reminder that Golick and Wingo will be live from Maryland this Friday, covering the Cowboys-Redskins matchup. Part of ESPN Radio's Fall Football Tour, brought to you by Marathon. Get 5 cents off every gallon every day with Make It Count rewards from Marathon. To sign up, visit makeitcount.com or download the free app. Also, the Stephen A. Smith Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Commercial insurance through Progressive protects your business and your dream. Choose from over 30 coverage options at progressivecommercial.com. Great to have my next guest on the line doing an outstanding job for the ESPN and ABC family as our legal analyst. You can also catch him co-hosting Outside the Lines on many, many occasions. He was a guest this morning on First Take with yours truly, along with Max Kellerman and Molly Curran. The one and only Ryan Smith is on the line with us right now. What's going on, Ryan? How are you, man? How's everything?
Man, Stephen A., I'm doing great, man. Thanks for the introduction. I appreciate it. How you doing?
Well deserved, my man. Let's get right to it. You heard this news went down about Antonio Brown. From a legal perspective, initially, what did you peel from it, and where are you now?
The first thing I thought when it came down, and this is sort of the lawyer in me, I thought, where's the police report? I got to see the police report. Because when we look at cases where there's an accusation of sexual assault, we start from the point of, okay, what was told to the police? Now, in this case, it's not clear whether or not she went to the police. Okay. Then I looked at the the civil complaint itself. And the complaint is, while very damning, you have this room that the defense, that Antonio Brown and his team have to say, this was a consensual relationship. So bottom line is, initially I'm thinking, without the police report, without anything going on the criminal side, it's going to be a he said, she said case. Now, as it's played out a little bit more, I think the key for me is what's the NFL going to do? Because on the face of it, Stephen A., anybody can file a civil complaint in this country.
Right.
I can say, I'm going to file one against you right now because you did this, you did that. And you could say, that's not true. If an NFL team or the NFL looks at that and says, yeah, okay, so we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt, let them play. They can do that. But if they think the scepter of what's in this lawsuit is so bad, they have to act, they're going to do that, even if it appears like it's almost like you're saying you're guilty until proven innocent.
We've seen the communication he had with her during, allegedly had with her via text messages and things of that nature. So I know you've seen it. What do you make of that? Some of the things that were in the text message, particularly considering that in one quote, and Molly Curran read it over the air, he appears to be acknowledging that he did touch her while she was asleep on one occasion. That appears to be incriminating in and of itself, which was something Max Kellerman pointed out as well. What about you? What do you make of that?
Right. You could argue that in that case, it's sort of an unlawful touching a battery. It could be an indication of sexual assault and something you think the police might get involved or be interested in. But here's the thing. When I read those communications, and again, this is not to say anything about what the accuser is saying here. This young woman has said that she has been through a terrible ordeal, and that needs to be heard. But as I look at that, what I look for is anything in this showing me that he clearly sexually assaulted her? When you get to a civil jury, when you get this in front of a civil jury, they're going to ask the question, does this pass muster for the preponderance of the evidence? In other words, they're going to look at this and make the determination, is it more likely than not that what she's claiming is true? And in a lot of these text messages, I see terrible behavior. I see horrible words used about her, terrible conduct, but I don't see anything necessarily saying directly that he sexually assaulted her. There's one point in these discussions where he mentions after an allegation of sexual assault, he says, hey, you made me feel like a rapist after that. It sounds damning, but can I be clear that that means that he sexually assaulted her, raped her? It's hard to say. And that's the thing about this, Stephen A. It ends up being he said, she said. Is this a volatile relationship that went back and forth but was consensual, or were there multiple instances of rape?
There are so many people out there, Ryan Smith, that have been focused on the fact that it's a difference. It's a civil case. It's not a criminal case. And we understand the difference. Civil, you're basically looking for monetary compensation, whereas in the case of a criminal case, it's about the potentiality of you going to jail or whatever the case may be. But in terms of the burden of proof on the part of the accused, of the accuser versus the accused, can you highlight for my listeners out there what the difference is in terms of the level of culpability attached to each, or just the requirement that it takes in order to reach a successful verdict in terms of a criminal case in comparison to a civil case?
Absolutely. We'll take this from the accuser's perspective.
Okay.
So in a criminal case, prosecutors are bringing the case. They're hoping that the accuser cooperates with them, but prosecutors are bringing this. And the burden of proof is really high. They got to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this crime was committed. So that's like, it almost has to be without a doubt that this happened. And we do that because we don't want to send people to jail when we think there may be a chance that they're innocent. It's totally different in a civil case. The standard is the preponderance of the evidence. So the idea is, based on all the evidence we have here, is it more likely than not that the conduct being alleged occurred? So is it more likely than not that what she's saying here is true? You want to put it on percentages? If you're a jury, you look at this and you say, can I say there's a 51% chance here that what she's saying is true? Then yeah, she wins. And that means the burden of proof is much lower. It's much easier for her to prevail in a civil case, and it's much harder for him to defend it.
Had a lawyer. I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead, Brian.
No, go ahead.
No, I had a lawyer earlier today email me this, and obviously you're qualified, so I want to know what your thoughts were this. When I brought up the fact that it was $75,000 that she was pursuing, the lawyer says to me, $75,000 is the minimal amount she had to plead to get into federal court based on diversity jurisdiction. Two parties from different states. Her actual claim will be in excess of $1 million. Do you find that to be true?
Absolutely. So the idea is, and she's asking for 75 or up. So it doesn't mean she's just asking for that amount. She could be asking for a lot more. But the whole point is, this happened in two different places. He's in a different jurisdiction. And what she wants to do is say, I got to bring this in federal court, because if I need to contact him, if I need to get him in for questioning, the court is going to be able to compel some of that to happen. They're going to help make some of that happen. But if I'm filing in state court, I'm just in one jurisdiction, I have a whole bunch more hurdles to jump through. So it just makes it easier for her to try to pursue her claim.
So in light of that reality, is it possible that law enforcement officials or a prosecutor can look at it and turn it into a criminal case? The NFL is going to investigate. She's making the accusation. There's a civil case against them. Is it possible that this could turn into a criminal case?
Absolutely. But I want to temper that in a way. So here's what I would say. They look at this. Today they wake up and they see this news. And let's say in Miami, where some of this conduct was alleged to have happened. In Miami, they look at this and they say, you know what? It's worth looking into. Let's just take a look. That's the start of a criminal investigation. But this is a process. Somebody was asking me earlier today, well, does this mean he could look at charges by the end of the week? I mean, if that happened, that would be one of the most exceptional situations I've seen in the criminal system. An investigation takes time. They're going to want to look into this if they decide to. They're going to want to talk to people. Just because an investigation starts doesn't mean the criminal charges will be filed. For them, it's about understanding whether or not there's probable cause to charge them with a crime. So I think, is there a possibility that investigation could happen? Yes, if they think that there's something more here that could be criminal conduct. But does that mean charges would be filed? That's way down the road. We can't know that until the police get all the information from all the sides and figure out whether there's probable cause.
Ryan Smith, legal analyst for ESPN, right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Somebody brought up, and a caller just called in about an hour ago, and brought up the notion that pursuing this civilly, as opposed to having criminal charges filed against them. The fact that it's a civil issue and it's never been about criminality, in terms from a legal perspective, gives folks cause to pause and makes them say there's an absence of credibility on the part of the accuser because she's going the civil route as opposed to going the criminal route. To that, what does a lawyer, a legal analyst like yourself, say about that?
So I'm gonna break this down for some people. I completely understand that perspective. Here's the problem. anyone can file a civil case at any time. So she can easily sit up there and say, you know what? I have had enough. I want to do this. I have my reasons. I'm going to file it now. But let me give you also a deeper reason. In this country, it is very hard to prove rape and sexual assault. Remember that standard I was telling you about earlier?
Yeah.
Beyond a reasonable doubt? Extremely hard to prove. Evidence in rape cases, extremely hard to come by. We don't know if she filed a rape kit or anything like that. But even if she has evidence that they had sex, how do we know that's not consensual sex? So let's for a second put ourselves in the shoes of the accuser. Let's say this happens and she's feeling like, well, should I go to the police? Should I talk to them? There are so many hurdles for abuse survivors to go to authorities. They may feel like, I'm going to be intimidated. Is my name going to be dragged to the mud? I'm taking on this man with all these millions of dollars. What will the police say? We don't know for sure if she approached the police or not. But all those things make people sometimes hesitant. I'm not trying to make excuses. What I'm trying to say is I think people go to this place of, well, why didn't you just go to police? And I think I would ask them the question of, when something happens to you, do you sometimes feel like authorities don't properly address your claims?
Right.
Because I've met with domestic abuse and sexual abuse survivors, and sometimes that's what they talk about. It's just so hard to think about having to explain my story over and over again, to constantly have to prove the fact that this happened to me when, in fact, I'm damaged because of what happened.
In light of what you just said, because I only got about a minute left here, so in light of what you just explained, is it possible, just getting away from Antonio Brown for a second and just speaking in generalities, when you saw him come out and say through his lawyer, we had a consensual relationship, you possibly put out there, because that makes the burden of proof even more difficult to capture for the accuser, because you're acknowledging that there was intimacy that was going on, but you're saying it was consensual. Wouldn't that make it even more difficult for her?
Yeah, it would. It would. And essentially, that's why you hire a lawyer for. Look, nobody hires a lawyer to say, hey, just take it easy and just kind of soft pedal this thing. You hire a lawyer because you feel like you've been aggrieved and you want to scream from the mountaintop, I didn't do this. So you're putting that out there to say, you say this, well, I say that. And that's the essence of the he said, she said part of this. So you're trying to make the point of, not only that, I may countersue you. That's to try to say to the public, this was consensual all along. And like you say, put even more of a burden on her to try to show what happened here. The burden shouldn't be on her, but in a civil case, that's how it's going to work out. She's going to have to show that to try to prevail.
Last question. That's the civilly. But when it comes to the NFL, they don't need to take that position. Their position is entirely different. It's about the shield. It's about the integrity of the league. It's about impugning its shield, its integrity. What does it look like for Antonio Brown as it pertains to the NFL, in your expert opinion?
I think it depends on how they want to look at this. Do they want to give him time? Then that'll be one thing. But I think if they're sitting up there and saying, we don't condone this kind of situation, and it gets to the point that enough information comes out where they feel like it looks like something happened here that could potentially violate the law, or that there was a sexual abuse claim that they believe is credible, say after they talk to her next week, then he could end up on the exempt list. But if they still feel like it's uneven and they don't really know what happened, I think they're going to take the wait-and-see approach.
Ryan Smith, legal analyst extraordinaire for ESPN. Thanks a lot, man. Great work on your part throughout all of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, man. Take care.
All right. The one and only Ryan Smith right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News, 888-SAY. ESPN is always the number to call up. Back to close out the show in a minute. By the way, have you ever had to miss a football game because you couldn't watch the game? That never has to happen again with TuneIn, your all-in-one audio app for live sports, news, music, and podcasts. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to live and on-demand coverage of every single game of the NFL season, including every NFL on ESPN Radio matchup, and that's just the beginning. TuneIn also gives you access to every MLB, NBA, and NHL game, not to mention college football, local and national sports radio, and sports podcast on ESPN Radio, like your boys.
Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
If you missed any of today's show, go check it out on demand in the Stephen A. Smith Podcast, brought to you by the Capital One Quicksilver Card, earning unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere. Hey, what's in your wallet? Before I get on out of here for the day, just wanted to remind everybody what today is. Regardless of all the things that we're discussing, unfortunately, with the Antonio Brown fiasco and things of this nature, more serious matters. Certainly, I'm not talking about the allegations of rape because it doesn't get much more serious than that. But let's understand what today is too. Today is September 11th, 18-year anniversary of an attack on our nation. When you listened this morning and you hear those names, the names of those who have left us, were taken from us, announced 2,996 people killed. What do you say? My heart still goes out to them, those we lost, the loved ones they left behind, undoubtedly still suffering, very painful memories of what transpired. Let's make sure we keep our hearts in the right place and remember what is great, how great it is to be an American.
Getting to know you.